In the 1st century AD, the Greek orator and philosopher Chrysostom penned a warning that resonates with uncanny prescience in our modern era. Luxury makes pains seem even harder, and dulls and weakens one's pleasures. For the person who is always luxuriating and never touches pain will end up unable to endure any pain at all, and also not able to feel any pleasure, not even the most intense. His observation, rooted in a world far removed from our own, speaks directly to a troubling paradox in the modern West. We live in an age of unprecedented access to pleasures, comforts, and entertainments, luxuries that would have left ancient kings awestruck. Yet, despite this abundance, millions grapple with chronic stress, anxiety, depression, and a host of physical ailments. Why, in a world brimming with conveniences, are so many struggling to find contentment? The answer lies in the intricate interplay between pleasure and pain, a dynamic shaped by our evolutionary past and disrupted by the comforts of modernity. This article delves into the roots of this paradox, exploring how our insatiable drive for pleasure, the phenomenon of comfort creep, and the neuroscientific reality of the pleasure-pain balance contribute to our mental and physical malaise. To fully grasp the challenges of modern life, we must first journey back to the world of our hunter-gatherer ancestors, whose existence shaped the human body and mind over hundreds of thousands of years. For the vast majority of human history, survival was a grueling endeavor, marked by relentless physical exertion and constant exposure to the elements. Our ancestors trekked miles daily in search of water and food, foraging for plants or hunting game in environments that demanded both stamina and ingenuity. They engaged in persistence hunting, a technique that involved tracking and chasing prey over long distances until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. After a successful hunt, they faced the arduous task of butchering the kill and hauling heavy loads of raw meat back to camp, often across rugged terrain. As Michael Easter articulates in The Comfort Crisis, before we figured out animal husbandry and crop cultivation, we were essentially professional athletes whose livelihood required us to be physically active. Anthropological studies reveal that hunter-gatherers routinely covered 25 miles or more in a single day, a level of activity that dwarfs the average modern person's weekly exercise. Easter notes, "The numbers suggest that our forefathers in just 3/4 of a day logged more activity than most of us now do in a week or two." This relentless physicality was not a choice, but a necessity, woven into the fabric of their daily survival until the end of their lives. Beyond physical demands, our ancestors faced profound mental and environmental challenges. Without modern medicine, they contended with infections, injuries, and illnesses using only rudimentary remedies. They endured scorching heat, freezing cold, and torrential rains without the shelter of climate-controlled homes. Food scarcity was a constant threat, and the uncertainty of when the next meal would come heightened their mental strain. In such a harsh world, the instinct to seek comfort and pleasure was not a luxury, but a survival mechanism. Resting whenever possible allowed their bodies and minds to recover from relentless exertion, while indulging in rare, calorie-rich foods like fatty meat, ripe fruit, or honey built essential energy reserves for lean times. Easter observes, "In an uncomfortable world, consistently seeking a sliver of comfort helped us stay alive." This drive for pleasure and comfort, hardwired through millennia of evolution, was exquisitely adapted to environments of scarcity. Crucially, it evolved without an off switch. In a world where comforts were fleeting and pleasures scarce, overindulgence was rarely a concern. Our ancestors' biology rewarded them for seizing every opportunity to rest or feast, ensuring their survival in a reality defined by hardship and uncertainty. Contrast this ancestral existence with the modern world, and the transformation is staggering. The comforts and conveniences that define our daily lives, automobiles, computers, smartphones, air conditioning, ultra-processed foods, streaming services, have existed for a mere century or less. a fleeting 0.03% of human history. As Easter aptly puts it, constant comfort is a radically new thing for us humans. Unlike our ancestors who battled scarcity, we inhabit environments of unprecedented abundance. Food is available around the clock, from drive-thrus to delivery apps. Entertainment streams endlessly, accessible with a tap on a screen. Physical exertion, once a prerequisite for survival, is now optional for many, replaced by sedentary jobs and automated conveniences. This revolution in comfort has fundamentally altered the human experience. Where our ancestors walked miles for water, we turn on a faucet. Where they hunted for days to secure a meal, we order groceries online. Where they endured the elements, we adjust thermostats to our exact preferences. These advancements, while undeniably beneficial, have introduced new challenges. Our evolutionary drive for pleasure and comfort, once a survival asset, now operates in a world where indulgence is not only possible but aggressively encouraged. Dr. Tom Finucane captures this mismatch with a vivid metaphor. We are cacti in the rainforest. Just as a cactus, evolved to thrive in arid deserts, would rot in a waterlogged jungle, our bodies and minds, designed for scarcity and struggle to cope with constant abundance. The consequences of this mismatch are evident in the modern health crisis. Obesity rates are climbing, with over 40% of adults in the United States classified as obese, according to the CDC. Chronic diseases like diabetes, heart disease, and hypertension are on the rise, driven by sedentary lifestyles and diets high in ultra-processed foods. Mental health issues, including anxiety and depression, affect millions, with the World Health Organization estimating that depression is a leading cause of disability worldwide. These ailments paradoxically stem not from deprivation but from excess, an excess of comfort, pleasure, and convenience that our biology was never designed to handle. One of the most insidious byproducts of this comfortable world is what Michael Easter terms comfort creep. This phenomenon describes how new comforts, once adopted, become the baseline, rendering previous standards of comfort unacceptable. Easter explains, when a new comfort is introduced, we adapt to it and our old comforts become unacceptable. Today's comfort is tomorrow's discomfort. This cycle unconsciously shrinks our tolerance for discomfort, redefining what we consider an acceptable level of effort, hardship, or inconvenience. Comfort creep is most glaringly apparent in the realm of physical activity. Modern conveniences have eliminated the need for movement in ways our ancestors could scarcely imagine. Cars transport us effortlessly. Delivery services bring goods to our doorsteps, and remote work allows many to live without leaving home. As a result, physical inactivity has become a hallmark of modern life. Easter cites a sobering statistic. 27% of us don't do any type of physical activity at all. Literally nothing. Life as a sort of prolonged shuffle from bed to office chair to sofa to bed. This sedentary existence stands in stark contrast to the human body's evolutionary design, which requires high levels of activity to maintain cardiovascular health, muscle strength, and metabolic function. Researchers at the Mayo Clinic underscore this point. The human, simply put, was not designed to sit all day. The physical toll of comfort creep is undeniable. Sedentary lifestyles contribute to the obesity epidemic, with excess body fat linked to a host of chronic conditions, from type 2 diabetes to joint degeneration. Inactivity also weakens muscles and bones, increasing the risk of injuries and osteoporosis. Beyond the body, comfort creep erodes mental resilience. Smartphones, social media, and streaming platforms offer instant gratification, numbing discomforts like boredom, loneliness, or frustration. Yet, this constant stimulation diminishes our ability to tolerate even minor inconveniences, leaving us less equipped to handle life's inevitable challenges. A 2023 study published in Frontiers in Psychology found that excessive screen time correlates with reduced emotional regulation, as individuals become accustomed to instant dopamine hits and struggle with delayed gratification. The most troubling aspect of comfort creep is its stealth. As Easter notes, this all occurs unconsciously. We are terrible at noticing that comfort creep is consuming us and what it's doing to us. We adopt new conveniences without questioning their long-term impact, only to find that our physical strength, mental fortitude, and emotional resilience have eroded. This gradual shift has created a society where discomfort, once a daily reality, is increasingly foreign, and where our capacity to endure it is diminishing. To understand why modern comforts are so detrimental, we must delve into the neuroscience of pleasure and pain, which reveals a profound interdependence between these sensations. In Dopamine Nation, psychiatrist Anne Lemke explains, one of the most remarkable neuroscientific findings in the past century is that pleasure and pain are processed in overlapping brain regions and work via an opponent process mechanism. Our brain is wired to maintain a pleasure-pain balance, a state of homeostasis where neither sensation predominates for long. When this balance is disrupted by excessive pleasure or pain, self-regulating mechanisms activate to restore equilibrium. Lemke visualizes this process as a balance scale, with pleasure on one side and pain on the other. When we indulge in pleasure, whether through a decadent meal, a social media binge, or a drug, gremlins hop onto the pain side to counteract the tilt. This opponent process mechanism ensures that pleasure is followed by a corresponding pain, which may manifest as physical discomfort, e.g., a sugar crash, emotional anguish, e.g., guilt, or mental restlessness. For example, the euphoria of a night of heavy drinking is often followed by a hangover and feelings of regret, a direct result of the brain's attempt to restore balance. The danger arises when we habitually overindulge. Through a process called neuroadaptation, the brain becomes desensitized to pleasure, requiring more of a stimulus to achieve the same effect. Simultaneously, it becomes hypersensitive to pain, making the come-down more severe and prolonged. Lemke warns, the paradox is that hedonism, the pursuit of pleasure for its own sake, leads to anhedonia, which is the inability to enjoy pleasure of any kind. This dynamic is particularly evident in addiction, where substances or behaviors like opioids, alcohol, or compulsive gaming no longer provide pleasure but are pursued to avoid the pain of withdrawal. In the case of opioid-induced hyperalgesia, chronic use can reset the brain's pleasure-pain balance to a state of enduring pain, where the drug exacerbates the very condition it was meant to treat. Modern pleasures, engineered to maximize dopamine release, exacerbate this imbalance. Ultra-processed foods, with their optimized blends of sugar, fat, and salt, trigger intense dopamine spikes, as do social media platforms designed to keep us scrolling. A 2022 study in Nature Reviews Neuroscience highlighted how these hyper-palatable stimuli hijack the brain's reward system, leading to compulsive consumption and diminished sensitivity to natural rewards like social interaction or physical activity. Over time, this creates a vicious cycle where we chase fleeting highs to escape persistent lows, only to find that our capacity for joy, whether from a sunset, a conversation, or a simple meal, fades. The interplay of pleasure and pain has captivated philosophers for centuries, offering timeless insights into our modern predicament. Friedrich Nietzsche, in his 1882 work, The Gay Science, posed a provocative question. What if pleasure and pain should be so closely connected that he who wants the greatest possible amount of the one must also have the greatest possible amount of the other? That he who wants to experience the heavenly high jubilation must also be ready to be sorrowful unto death? Nietzsche challenges the modern fantasy that science and technology can eliminate pain while maximizing pleasure, suggesting instead that a life of profound joy requires embracing struggle and sorrow. His insight aligns with neuroscience, which confirms that pleasure and pain are inseparable, each amplifying the other's impact. The 4th century BC philosopher Diogenes the Cynic took this idea to an extreme, advocating for a life of deliberate discomfort as the path to true happiness. Diogenes sought out pain to enhance his capacity for pleasure, rolling in hot sand during the summer heat, walking barefoot in snow, and embracing ice-covered statues in winter. He lived in a clay storage jar, consumed the simplest of foods, and practiced intermittent fasting, sometimes going days without eating. Diogenes famously declared, "Despising pleasure is the greatest of pleasures," arguing that voluntary hardship allowed him to find greater satisfaction in his austere tub than the Persian ruler Xerxes found in his opulent palace. While many in his time and ours labeled him mad, Diogenes' practices prefigure modern scientific findings. By exposing himself to discomfort, he likely reset his pleasure-pain balance, making simple pleasures like a sip of water or a moment of rest profoundly rewarding. The Cynic philosophy, as articulated by Diogenes, viewed pain not as an adversary, but as a teacher and ally. Philosopher William Desmond elaborates, "True pleasure, the cynics often contend, can only be had by scorning it and by welcoming its opposite, pain. There will always be pain, and so rather than escape it, one should grasp the serpent by the neck, put out the fire with one's tongue, rush into the fray fearlessly." For the cynics, pain and labor, ponos, were pathways to satisfaction, transforming them into ascetic hedonists who found joy in aligning with nature's rhythms. This perspective stands in stark contrast to modern hedonism, which seeks to eradicate pain through consumption, only to encounter it in new forms: obesity, addiction, or existential despair. Dio Chrysostom, writing centuries later, echoed this wisdom, noting that the self-controlled lover of pain lives a life that is far more pleasurable than his opposite. His observation underscores a counterintuitive truth. By embracing controlled doses of discomfort, we enhance our capacity for pleasure and resilience. These ancient voices, from Diogenes to Nietzsche, remind us that the pursuit of comfort at all costs is a fool's errand, leading not to fulfillment, but to fragility. The good news is that the damage inflicted by overindulgence is not permanent. Anne Lemke's clinical experience suggests that 4 weeks of abstinence from addictive substances or behaviors, whether drugs, alcohol, sugary foods, or compulsive screen time, can reset the brain's reward pathways, restoring our ability to find joy in simpler, less intense pleasures. This process begins with self-binding, a strategy of intentionally creating barriers to limit compulsive consumption. In Homer's Odyssey, Odysseus exemplifies self-binding by ordering his crew to tie him to the mast to resist the siren's deadly song. Similarly, we can remove temptations from our environment, keeping junk food out of the house, uninstalling addictive apps, or setting strict time limits on digital devices to regain control over our impulses. Nietzsche, in his 1881 work, The Dawn of Day, offers a practical approach to self-binding. One can avoid opportunities for gratification of the drive for pleasure, and through long and ever longer periods of non-gratification weaken it and make it wither away. By imposing structure, such as limiting social media to specific times or abstaining from certain pleasures on designated days, we create intervals of freedom from compulsive urges, gradually diminishing their hold. Beyond abstinence, voluntarily seeking discomfort can tip the pleasure-pain balance toward enduring pleasure. Physical exercise, for instance, involves temporary pain but triggers the release of endorphins, dopamine, and serotonin, elevating mood and reducing cravings for unhealthy pleasures. A 2021 study in the Journal of Substance Abuse Treatment found that regular exercise significantly reduces drug and alcohol use among recovering addicts, while also improving mental health. Similarly, cold water immersion, a practice gaining popularity, activates the vagus nerve and releases neurotransmitters that enhance mood for hours, as documented in a 2020 study in Lifestyle Medicine. Setting ambitious goals, Tackling complex problems or embracing mentally and emotionally challenging tasks can also shift the balance, fostering resilience and a deeper capacity for joy. These practices resonate with the example of Diogenes, who understood that discomfort strengthens both body and mind. In a world of abundance, where comfort creep and overindulgence threaten our well-being, we would do well to adopt what Nietzsche called a bit of cynicism, a little bit of the tub. By integrating controlled doses of pain through exercise, fasting, cold exposure, or intellectual struggle, we counteract the numbing effects of modern comforts and rediscover the pleasures of a balanced life. The modern world, with its unparalleled comforts, has laid bare a fundamental truth. Our unbridled pursuit of pleasure, far from delivering happiness, leads to pain. Comfort creep has eroded our physical strength and mental resilience, while the pleasure-pain balance, disrupted by constant indulgence, leaves us vulnerable to a host of ailments, from obesity to addiction to existential despair. Yet, the solution lies within our reach. By understanding our evolutionary roots, embracing the neuroscience of pleasure and pain, and drawing on the wisdom of philosophers like Diogenes, Nietzsche, and Dio Chrysostom, we can chart a path toward a more fulfilling life. Like Diogenes, we can choose to make our lives a little harder, not out of masochism, but out of a desire to maximize our strength, joy, and vitality. In doing so, we align with the rhythms of our biology and the insights of those who, across centuries, have recognized that pain and pleasure are inseparable. As we navigate this brave new world of abundance, let us embrace discomfort as a teacher, a healer, and a guide to a life well lived. By scorning the siren call of endless comfort and welcoming the lessons of pain, we can reclaim the profound pleasures that lie beyond the horizon of our cushioned existence.